So there we go. For the 5th time in Premier League history, Norwich City have been officially relegated. It's a day we've been seeing coming for a long while. Since the restart, Norwich have been absolutely terrible. But what I'm going to attempt to do in this video is try and break down what has happened to my football club this season and how we go forward as a fan base, as a club, and what the future holds for Norwich City. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whenever you happen to be watching this. Welcome along to another video on the channel. I'm James. The majority of you guys who subscribe to me and also follow me on Twitter will know me for my non-league content. So we go around to different grounds, primarily in Suffolk, occasionally in Norfolk, where I highlight that, but a lot of you will know that I am a Norwich City fan. So being from this area, a majority of my fan base that follow me are Ipswich Town supporters, so you're going to be absolutely loving this. For me, a bit of mixed emotions about how I'm kind of feeling at the moment. Because we've seen this coming over the past few weeks, I'm kind of numb. I don't really know how I'm feeling, but I think overall, when you reflect on the season as a whole, there's a lot of things you can pick out and say, well, that's the reason why this has happened. But yeah, I'm going to be going through some of those. Let's go all the way back to the beginning of the season and let's talk about where it's gone wrong for the club. So if you look at how things started, actually, we had a relatively decent start. I mean, we had the opening game at Liverpool where we performed really well in the second half and we were getting plaudits for the way that we played. We beat Newcastle at home. We gave Chelsea a hell of a run for their money. We lost against West Ham, but we had the big injury to Christoph Zimmermann. And then we beat Man City. And the time of beating Man City, the squad was practically on its knees. We put in a hell of a shift that day, and everyone was talking about Norwich City and the fact that we had this perfect game plan to beat them. We were being talked about a lot. Despite the fact we had the number of injuries, you felt reasonably confident. But the next run of games, we lost to Burnley, to Palace, heavy defeat to Villa. We had a 0-0 draw against Bournemouth. We then lost against Man United, Brighton, Watford, before our first victory in a long time was the 23rd of November, and that was only our 3rd victory of the season. So you can already see there's a big clump of games right at the beginning of the season where we just dramatically fell off a cliff. That early momentum in the beginning of the season, we had that oomph and we had that drive and that no fear attitude that a lot of teams that come up from the from the Championship have when they start in the Premier League. There was just a gung-ho, this is how we play, we're going to take it to teams and let's just see what happens. In the beginning, we were getting some decent results, but we then started to pick up a lot of injuries, and this is the first point as to why our season kind of fell apart. We had so many injuries at the back that at one point Sam Byron was playing at left back, we had Teti and Amadou playing at centre half, which when you then lose your 2 holding midfield players, you would normally turn to Tribal, but he was injured. So you're then asking people like Vrancic and Kenny McLean to then sit in deep and defend and protect the back 4. That's not their job. They've never been capable of doing that. They're more getting on the ball, making things happen and driving us forward up the pitch. And what happened was, is that as you gradually went through those set of games, the team went further and further and further and further back to try and protect, the defence that was completely crumbled. We had all 4 centre-halves out at one point. We had Zimmermann, Godfrey, Hanley and Close out injured at one point during the season. We were completely torn apart. And it reflected in the results, because what was happening during the games is that we were getting the ball back, playing it up to Pukki, and then there was nobody up there to help support him because of how deep everyone was. The defeats start happening. The momentum is completely gone by this point. Yes, we turn up for the occasional big game. We drew against Arsenal, drew away against Leicester. We drew at home against Tottenham. We picked up that away win, as I've already mentioned, against Everton. We turn up against the big teams, but against the teams around us, as I said, drew against Bournemouth, lost to Villa, lost to Palace, lost to Burnley. You go down, we lost to Southampton. We lost to recently promoted team with us, Sheffield United. The list goes on and on and on, but it just never really happened for us this season. And as I said, since the restart, we have looked an absolute shadow of the team that got us promoted and that started off the season. I don't like to accuse footballers of giving up, but I think a lot of them have given up. The moment we concede a goal, that's it. They're completely done. Their heads have absolutely gone. There's no way they're putting up any sort of fight in that game. And that is such a shame to see these group of players reacting that way. You know, our first game back against Southampton, I said it on Twitter. We were playing our first game of pre-season and it looked like Southampton were already 3 or 4 games into a season. They were just so much better to us. They were quicker, they were more energetic, their pressing was far better than us, and they completely tore us apart. And, you know, no disrespect to Southampton. I love them as a football club. I think they're brilliant. I think what they're doing under Ralph Hasenhüttl is an absolutely amazing job. But that was the perfect opportunity that if you were going to mount some sort of a comeback and give the fans some sort of belief and expectation that, yes, we can go on and at least try and give it a go, saving off relegation, all hope went out the window the moment that game finished at full time. Absolutely gone. You know, we then put up a very pathetic display against Everton. Turn up for Manchester United in the Cup when there's no pressure on us. We turn up to that game. We give them a hell of a run for their money, losing in extra time. But then poor defeats against Arsenal, Brighton, Watford, and then today was just absolute shambles. An absolute shambles. Defensively, again, all over the place. It's just not been good. To be honest, the main reason why is because we have played the exact same way. Now, that is good and bad because you want to have an identity and you want to have a philosophy about how you play and something that you stick to, which is what we did in the Championship last year. But when you come up against higher opposition, they will punish you. You know, last season, we were conceding goals for fun. For fun. But we were scoring 3 and 4 goals most games. We could outscore teams. In the Premier League, you can't do that. You simply cannot do that. We were massively exposed at the back. You know, both our fullbacks attack. The centre halves get them exposed because there's primarily no real holding midfielder. We like to play with our midfielders kind of box to box and deep line. Do you know what I mean? They want to collect the ball, spray it around, etc. There's no real protection. And when you've got both your fullbacks bombing on, as I said, in this division, you are going to get picked apart very, very quickly. And that is what has happened this season. You know, a lot of people are saying online that we've abandoned what we did last season. I think it's the complete opposite. I think we've stuck to it. And that has ultimately been what is our downfall, is that last season was amazing. It was a miracle. There was absolutely no way that club was going to get promoted. But we did. We somehow did. This season, however, we've stuck to those guns, and that is what has cost us. And, you know, you have to weigh up, well, what do you want when you're going up to the Premier League? Do you want to be under a manager like a Chris Hughton, a Sam Allardyce, you know, the Alan Pardewes, who are going to, you know, Tony Pulis, for example? Are you going to play that set way of football just in order to survive? Or do you want to have something about you? And do you want to have an identity and something that you as a fan base can cling on to and say, yeah, this is how we play. It's not always going to work, but it's bloody fun watching it. I know which one I'd rather have. And yes, the relegation and, you know, everything is hurting and it's disappointing right now. But I know which one I'd rather have. I've sat through the Chris Hughton days and they have bored me to tears. My brother gave up watching football for Norwich for a good few years because of Chris Hughton. I know exactly what it's like to sit there through that terrible, terrible style of football. So, you know, which one do you prefer? Well, it's a big question. I think really what has gone on this season is that it is very, very reminiscent to the first season in the Championship with Farke, in that his decision-making process, his substitutions, his knowing when to change the game in that first season in the Championship was bad. Second season, he's learnt, he's adapted, and he's got a team playing a certain way. We get promoted. This season is exactly the same. New division, new players he's coming up against. He hasn't learned from his mistakes. His substitutions have been appalling. Some of the tactics and the decisions that he's been doing since the lockdown has eased off and we started against Southampton have just been woeful. Really, really have been woeful. I honestly think, and a lot of people might disagree with this, but I think if they had said that this season is null and void and we go again next year, I don't think we're in this battle. I honestly don't think we're in this battle because he learns. Farke learns. It takes him a while, but he does learn. As I said, he's got to hold his hands up and look at what has gone on this season. My big thing is I want Farke to stay. I really, really do, because I like what him and Stuart Webber have done for the club. I really, really do. But he's got a question now whether or not he's got the fight and the desire to get us back up next season. He's got to look at himself and think, have I done a good enough job, and am I willing to go that extra mile to get the club promoted next year? And I think it's all going to be down to him. I don't think the club are realistically going to want to get rid of him. I don't think the club will make that decision. It will be whether or not Farke decides to walk. That's the big call now. Exactly the same thing. Last season and the season before, you look at the signings he's been making, they've been absolutely superb. Absolutely superb. 9 times out of 10, the signings have pulled off. This season, however, I think maybe Sam Byram aside, no, they haven't. You know, Amadou was okay in patches, but never really materialised. Dermich has been terrible. Duda has just not really got going. Lucas Rupp, I don't know what type of a player he is. I think he's better when he's in the centre and behind rather than out wide. I think the only one you can kind of pin your hopes on and say, yeah, that's been a really good signing is Sam Byram. He's been very, very good when asked to either be at right back or left back. He's done a very, very good job, but the rest of the signings have not been great. We are yet to see obviously what Sam McCallum can bring. Melvin City, who have gone both back out on loan. Some of the other guys that have come in have all gone out on loan as well. So all in all, it's not been great from a transfer perspective. This summer is where it's going to be crucial. Now, this is the biggest question I think a lot of Norwich fans are going to have over the summer. You're talking about the likes of Max Aarons, Jamal Lewis, Ben Godfrey, Emi Buendia and Todd Cantwell. Those are the 5 big players that a lot of Norwich fans are going to be thinking, well, are they going to really stick around? You know, are we going to be able to keep a hold of them? But I think the question you have to really ask yourself is, based on this season's performances, who, in all honesty, has had a good enough season that someone is going to be prepared to pay the amount of money that we want for them? That's what you really have to ask yourself, because has Jamal Lewis had a good season? He's been okay. Has Godfrey had a good season? I think he's been average. I think he's looked okay in spells, but I think he's not been amazing and certainly hasn't covered himself in glory defensively. Personally, I see his best role as the holding midfielder. That's what I personally see. I think he's done it really well at Shrewsbury, and I think he would feel more comfortable sitting in and protecting a back 4. But that's just my opinion. Max Aarons, yeah, has looked good in spells. I think he might have an outside shot of going. But again, we're going to command a big fee for him because financially we're in a pretty decent position despite the relegation. Emi Buendia, yes, in terms of chances created, he's right up there. But the number of assists and goals, you know, if people look at it purely from a statistical point of view, has he performed? I don't know. I think Todd Cantwell is probably the main one that, if out of the 5, will go. And if we can get some sort of a bidding war going on for somebody like Todd, as much of a disappointment as it would be to lose him, I think his game is far more suited to the Premier League than it is the Championship. And I think this season has shown that. Last season, a bit part player, fans were not particularly keen on him. This season, he's been a breath of fresh air. Him and Pookie up top have been amazing. But you look at some of our other players, and I think I'm going to do a separate video about whether or not people will come and go. But I don't think people are going to stump up the money for Pookie. I think he will stick around. None of our defenders are realistically going to be sold. I don't think Zimmerman will go. I don't think Close will go. I think this is now his home until he decides to go back to Switzerland. You know, there's a lot of players in there like Kenny McLean. Really? Is anybody going to want to buy him? I highly doubt it. Onel Hernandez, maybe somebody might take a punt on him. He's certainly dynamic and one of our most creative players moving forward. But realistically, from the rest of the squad, I don't see a massive amount of movement going out. So I think really we should be okay. Well, next season is is going to be very interesting depending on who we get rid of, and that is the biggest thing, because money, players coming in, our board and our transfer recruitment is so kind of left field that you don't anticipate and you don't expect those signings to be coming in. That's why every time we are linked with a player, I instantly dismiss it, because realistically, the rumours that go around about Norwich City transfers never happen anymore. Never ever happen anymore. Who would have heard of Mario Vrancic, Morris Leitner, Christoph Zimmerman? I'm just going through the list on here. Steeperman, Tribal. We had so many players that people would. No one's going to go, yeah, I reckon Norwich are going to be after that person. It just, none of those rumours materialise. So I think in terms of transfers in, it's a mystery, and we'll let the club do whatever they want. But I think for next year, we have to keep a core group of players together who want to be here and who want to be committed. If some of those, touted youngsters of ours want to move on, quite frankly, get the highest fee you can for them and move on. We've got to start getting into that rhythm of now starting to churn out the next group of youngsters. And I'm thinking about Sam McCallum. I'm thinking about Adam Ida. I'm thinking about Josh Martin. These are the next group of players coming through. Jordan Thomas is another one, the right back. Let's start getting these guys in and around the first team for next season and really start preparing for it. But as I said, it's going to be an interesting one. I'd love to hear what you guys think about who will be sold and who won't. So, in summary, it's been a very, very disappointing season. Individually, our players, you could argue, are some of the best that we've had going into a new Premier League season after being promoted. If you look at on paper, Tim Krul's a solid goalkeeper. You got Jamal Lewis, Max Aarons as your fullbacks. They are two brilliant fullbacks on their day. You've got Ben Godfrey who's being touted as one of the next best centre-backs. We just haven't really figured out how to have a central partnership with him. I think personally he works a lot better when Grant Hanley's beside him, who is another player that unfortunately he's been injured a lot this season, and we have massively missed out on him. You've got the creative outlets of Hernandez, Cantwell, Buendia, Steeperman up top with Pookie, who all on their day can perform absolutely amazing things. But for whatever reason, this season has just not worked. As I said, injuries played a massive part of it. Confidence is another big thing. We had the confidence completely ripped out of us this season. Tactics have been off. Substitutions have been terrible. The manager's got to take his share of the responsibility. The recruitment hasn't been right. But the thing is, we knew that the recruitment in terms of the money spent was never going to be there. And this is this is my one bugbear with Norwich fans, is that we knew the spending wasn't going to happen. And yet all I've seen over the past few weeks was, if we only spent more money, if we spent more money. It wasn't going to happen, so why are you saying it? We all know that if we spent more money, then we probably would have had a better chance. But it's not going to happen. So stop demanding things of this board, of this management, of the sporting director and Stuart Webber that you know are not going to happen. We have got ourselves into a fantastic situation where, from a financial perspective and the stability of the club, we are set now. We are very, very good. We're in a healthy position. A lot of these players are going to have to be taking wage cuts in order to come down to the Championship again. We are financially, we're good. And that is all because of Stuart Webber and what he's done. He's completely transformed this club and has taken it from the point where if we didn't sell Maddison, we were in serious, serious trouble, to now being in a very strong position. And I would rather have people at the club who are there to protect it and look after it, and having a way of of playing football and having an identity and something about us, rather than just being a team who come up for a couple of seasons, play boring football, and then just get relegated and then just come back down. We've seen it with the likes of of Huddersfield, of Stoke, of Middlesbrough, who have gone up, not done anything, come back down, and are now really, really struggling. We have the setup and everything in place now to potentially get ourselves back up and promoted. We've got to have a lot of good things going for us this summer, but we're in a lot stronger position than what some other teams were. I mean, if you look at the table at the moment, if the next two teams could go down with us, Bournemouth have spent well above what they're bringing in. They rely on the Premier League money and their rich owner. Is the rich owner really going to stick around in the Championship? We'll have to wait and see. Are a lot of their players going to stick around? No. What attracted you to Bournemouth? The fact that they're in the Premier League. Now that they're going to become another Championship team, who realistically is going to want to go there unless Eddie Howe sticks around? Eddie Howe's a massive pulling factor for that club. If he doesn't stick around, if they decide to get rid of him, there's big question marks there. Villa have spent a lot of money, and they had to because of the number of loan signings that they had going up from the Championship. They had to spend a lot of money. But again, a lot of money was spent for no reward. So that's what I mean about Norwich fans complaining about the lack of money spent. Money spent doesn't always guarantee you success. It doesn't always mean that you're going to survive. West Ham have spent an absolute shed ton. They're sat in 16th. Yes, they beat us today, but I mean, not being funny, anyone could beat us today. So there's different ways of looking at all of this. I'd love to hear your thoughts. I'd love to know what Norwich fans are really thinking at the moment, how you're feeling about the situation at the moment. There's going to be a lot of people out there who are frustrated, and I 100% get that. There are going to be a lot of people who want massive changes at the club. Let me know down in the comment section what you think the club should do moving forward. The big questions are, which players are going to be sold? Should Stuart Webber step down? Is a question that I have seen online. I don't think he should at all. I think we need him, so I don't want to see that happen. Should Farke step down? And who is ultimately to blame for this relegation? Let me know down in the comment section what you make of it. But yeah, I've not enjoyed making this video one iota. It's never nice to have another relegation against our name. The journey of getting to the Premier League is one that I would not take back. I've been a Norwich fan since I was 5 years old. I've seen lots of ups, I've seen lots of downs, but the journey and getting to the Premier League and some of those moments that you get are stuff that, you know, can never be taken away. Can never ever be taken away. And I'd rather be in the position that we are than our neighbours down the road. That's how I'm going to end this video. Until next time, adios.